what we are discussing tonight is how you can esteem a man to greatness. Does that not sound good? Yes. To esteem your husband into being a better man, to esteem your adult son or teenage son into being a better man, that you can have this pivotal influence. So even though we're mainly going to be focusing on the husband-wife relationship, if you're not married or you're hoping to be married someday, this could be absolutely key. Or if you just have a guy in your life, whether it's your brother or your son, a lot of these things we're going to talk about would apply even in that relationship, that you can be used by God as kind of a tool in God's tool belt, right? To esteem that guy into being a better man. So here's the big takeaway tonight. If you decide, and it is your decision, I'm not holding a gun to your head, this is your decision. If you decide to show respect and honor to your husband, he will likely become a better man. He will likely become a better man. You can esteem him to greatness. And don't we all want this? Don't we all want the 2.0 version? You know, like, okay, we want him to be as best as he can be. And this idea of showing this respect and honor, this is not my idea. I did not invent this. It's God's very clear, concise instruction to wives. God gives this clear command in Ephesians 5:33. The wife must respect her husband. You've heard me mention that many, many times to you. But instinctively, most of us rebel. Have you ever felt like, he doesn't deserve my respect. He does not deserve my respect, right? I mean, we kind of rebel against it because it only seems appropriate to show respect when you're thrilled with him. Then I feel like being respectful, right? Or when he just surprised you with flowers, I have no problem with being honoring and respectful. Or when he just got a huge pay raise at work, I can be very respectful in that moment. Or when he's gentle and patient with the kids, I find it very easy to be respectful. When he offers to watch a romantic movie with me, I can feel more respectful. When he's doing things that please me, I have an easier time being respectful. But God is asking us to show this honor and respect to the men in our lives all the time. When he thrills you and when he disappoints you. When he speaks loving words to you and even when he's frustrating you. When he behaves honorably and even when he is sinning, God is saying you can choose to interact with him in a respectful way even in that moment. And we can do this. We can do this because I've learned something in my journey that respect, the word respect in Ephesians 5:33, it is a verb. It is a verb, right? It's not a feeling, it's an action word. It's a choice to interact with the man in your life, your husband, in a very specific way. God is asking us to choose to act respectfully toward our husbands. It's the decision to treat them with honor and dignity and to choose to build them up rather than to tear them down. So I know some of you are already going like, you're inwardly rolling your eyes at me. You know I'm looking at you, so you're not rolling them outwardly, but I can tell inside you're going, because it's like, I don't want to do this. Why do I have to do this? It doesn't sound like any fun to do this. You don't know my husband, blah, 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 blah. So why should we do this? Even if your husband, especially if your husband is frustrating you, disappointing you, maybe even sinning against you. Three basic reasons we want to choose to act respectfully toward our guys all the time. First, because God said to do this, and he blesses us when we obey him. And so this is kind of, I know this is not like rocket science, but I want to be blessed by God. Anybody else want to be blessed by God? Well, when we obey him, we receive the blessing. James 1:25, but whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they've heard, but doing it, like an action word, they will be blessed in what they do. I want God's blessings. I want the maximum amount of God's blessings in my life. How about you? And apparently, doing what God tells us to do, so this is like application for every single instruction you've ever read in the Bible, not just this thing about respect, but when we actually do the things God tells us to do, he says that we're going to be blessed in that. A second reason that this is so important, because if we show disrespect through our facial expressions, because a woman can, oh man, we can just slice and dice with a facial expression, can we not? You know, right? I mean, we have those looks of disgust or the rolling of the eyeballs. If we show disrespect through our facial expressions, words, our men will usually withdraw from us emotionally. They will usually withdraw emotionally They'll maybe self-medicate through alcohol or porn or drugs or gambling, or they might look for validation from another woman. And that would destroy your family. So it's worthwhile to do this, to respect, because he's craving it. And this leads us to our third point, why this is so important, because men are wired to crave respect. And when we show respect to our husbands and build them up, they are more likely to have the courage to put the hard work into becoming mature, godly, awesome men. Are you catching that vision? My husband has told me so many times that because I've done my best, I'm not perfect at it, but because I really, really intentionally try to show respect and honor to him, that he's able to press courageously forward, to do things in ministry, to do godly things of integrity, because I'm showing him respect. Men are wired to crave respect. Research by Shanti Feldhan, she asked men, if you had to choose between being alone and unloved or feeling inadequate and disrespected, which would you choose? And 75% said they'd rather be alone and unloved than feel inadequate and disrespected. It's just a huge thing for guys. And some of you know that this expression, esteem your husbands to greatness, is the phrase that God dropped into my spirit when Squadron of Sisters was born. That was this phrase I'd never heard before, never heard it again. It's just from the Lord that he said, teach the women how to esteem their husbands to greatness. What a mission. And catch the vision of this. As you show this respect and honor and speak encouraging words to your husband, he has the courage to press into being a more godly man and kind of look like that. Right? It kind of makes him feel like a superhero that can go out and slay dragons because his woman believes in him. She respects him. I know some of you are still kind of rolling your eyeballs, so let's go through some other... I'm going to knock down all your objections here. What if you're really disappointed or frustrated with him? What if he's sinning against you? I know this idea of showing respect, even when we're super disappointed, is really hard. But here's the thing. We reap what we sow. That's a clear Bible principle in Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. If your husband has seriously disappointed you, even sinned against you, boy, we can feel so entitled to treat him with disrespect. I mean, I felt that way when my husband's been sharp with me or sharp with a loved one, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm fuming inside, and smoke's coming out of my nostrils, and I'm like, oh, and I don't want to be respectful in that moment. I mean, who does? I mean, I feel entitled. I feel entitled to treat him disrespectfully, to maybe treat him with disgust or tell him he's a jerk, and I've been tempted. I've been tempted to do that. But how would that work out? What would be the impact of me saying that? Would that bring anything beneficial in the moment? Would that solve the problem? And I'm not saying you shouldn't have boundaries, because of course, if he's sinning against you, you need to establish boundaries. In fact, you should ask for changes. You should establish boundaries on things you will not tolerate, but you can still choose to be respectful even when you're setting firm boundaries. You can still even encourage him and speak life to him as you're setting boundaries. You can say, I will not tolerate you, cussing at me, or I will not tolerate you looking at pornography. You're better than that. I believe in you. I am in it for the long haul in this marriage because I know there's a good man here. And I'm going to work with you to beat this thing, for whatever we need to do. I'll look up the right counselors for you, whatever. I'm with you, but I will not tolerate this. There's a way to speak respectfully in that moment. Here are two big questions to ponder. If you are disrespectful when he disappoints you, is he likely to have courage to work hard to change his behavior? Or is he likely to turn his heart away from you and comfort himself in destructive ways? I mean, which is more likely if you're being disrespectful? He's probably going to turn his heart away from you and self-medicate. And that brings down a whole other boatload of problems, right? On the other hand, if you are respectful and speak words of encouragement and hope, even though he's disappointed you, is he more likely to do the hard work to make the changes? Yes. Yes. Respect is a valuable tool. This means, ladies, like I've said a bajillion times, and I continue to remind myself, that we must pause and think before we speak, right? We have to think before we react and before we speak. Proverbs 11:18, reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. The devil knows if he can get us to dwell on our husband's shortcomings, we'll be more likely to be disrespectful. And if we don't think before we speak, we will do all sorts of damage. Let me give you my latest example, because God always provides an example right before I'm going to talk. So this is actually coming back from Spokane about 10 days ago. There was a really bad traffic situation. My husband said, well, let's just get off here. He's always thinking of the shortcut. And so he's like, we'll just get off here. We'll go around. Well, anyway, we kind of got somewhat lost. It was like, where are we? I don't know. And then we're running out of gas. And he's like, Google a gas station. I couldn't find a gas station. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong when my phone's not working. And then we ran out of data. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't find a gas station. And so he is stressed. And when Raul is stressed, I don't know about your husbands, but when Raul is stressed, yikes, I don't want to be within 20 miles of him because he gets very, very short and snippy. And so he's turning around like yelling at me. I mean, he never speaks any words that are bad. It's the tone. Have you ever had the tone that's just like, oh, that's disrespectful. And so I'm starting to fume like, how dare you use that tone with me? I am not the guilty party here. And so I'm kind of fuming. And I'm like, yeah, I got to set a boundary right now. I can just tell him, that he is being a jerk. And so I'm like ready to unload. Which I know some of you are like, Debbie unloads on her husband. I'm tempted a lot. And so I was like, I'm ready. And I felt God say, not now. So we drove the next hour and a half in complete silence, all the way home. We get home, and he's just going to get out of the car like nothing's going on. And I put my hand out, and I'm thinking, now is the time I'm going to tell him what a jerk he is. And so I'm like, and then the lessons that I teach came to mind. And I'm like, what would the SOS women think in this moment if they were a fly on the wall of this car? They'd go like, what are you doing, Debbie? And I'm like, ooh. And so I went, what would Debbie Chana say? And so I actually, in the blink of an eye, I do what I was supposed to say because I've said to do this before. So I did what I was supposed to do. I paused and then I said, I put my hand on his arm and I said, I know you love me and that you would never, ever hurt me intentionally. But the way you spoke to me was not okay. So please don't do that again. Thank you. And then I got out of the car. And you know what? It ended really well. And he said, well, can you tell me what I did? And I said, and then I was able to explain it wasn't your words, it was your tone of voice. But I know that would not have gone nearly as well if I just said, that was ridiculous, you're a jerk, I can't believe you treat me like that. How would that have worked? But it dropped his defenses when I said, I know you love me, you would never intentionally hurt me, but what you did is not okay. Please don't do that again. Telling on myself there. But I did the right thing at the last minute. Let's have a round of applause. Yeah, I'm just kidding. So the minute you start that thought process in your head, he's a complete jerk. I can't stand him. He'll never change. I should have never married him. He doesn't deserve my respect. Stop yourself in that moment and ask God to help you list at least 5 good qualities about your husband because he actually does have some good qualities. I know he does. There are qualities you can respect and admire about your husband. Does he go to work? Some guys don't. You can actually speak out on that and say, I'm so thankful that you work so hard. Does he change the oil in the car or something like that? Thank you for taking care of that. Does he change a light bulb that's up in the ceiling and you have to get a ladder and he's like, I'll take care of that. Thank you for taking such good care of our family. Does he attend church with you? Oh, most men do not. If your husband does, I'd be all over that one. Would he fight to protect your family if someone broke into the house? If he's a protector, call him out in that and say, I'm so appreciative that I feel so safe with you. Would he climb into the attic to locate the source of the leak in your roof? I mean, I could just go on and on about things that you can think of that you could say, I can honor that in him. I can respect that in him. Remember, you will reap what you sow. You can tell your husband he's a jerk, he disappoints you, or even sins against you, but how is that going to turn out? And sometimes we don't realize we are the ones being disrespectful. The words kind of pop out of our mouth. We criticize the way he does the task. Anyone else do that sometimes? Like no one in this room ever criticizes the way their husband does something. Sure, okay. Maybe you complain about not having enough money, or a wife might make sure that her husband knows how disappointed she is that he doesn't, pray with her like the pastor probably does with his wife. Or we tend to complain. We tend to point out flaws. We might nag. We challenge his ideas and opinions. We roll our eyes. We let our children interrupt when our husband's trying to talk to us. We voice our doubt about his capabilities or expertise. We tell funny, unflattering stories about our husbands in front of others. All these things can be really super disrespectful. The words you choose can breathe life into your marriage and family, or they can bring death. A couple of scriptures to point this out. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 16:24, pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul. Proverbs 10:21, the lips of the righteous nourish many. Proverbs 12:25, an anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up. So I want to give you 10 practical ideas on how to get started in acting respectfully toward your husband, toward that teenage son of yours, or maybe your brother, because I do know that if you have a son, they are also wired to crave respect. And so some of these ideas will apply to any man in your life because they're all craving that respect. So first, commit to tell him one thing you appreciate about him every day. That alone can transform a marriage. It truly can. When you just point out something good in him every day that you can appreciate, men so crave that appreciation. What if you were to do that for like 30 days in a row as an experiment? And how hard is this? It takes you what? A sentence, 5 seconds to get out a sentence and say, thank you so much for working hard for our family. Thank you so much that even though you were tired, you prayed with the kids before bed. Thank you so much that you mowed the lawn. Thank you so much that you went to church. Thank you so much that you are, that you come right home after work instead of going to the bars. Whatever it is, if you just did that one time a day, every day for 30 days, I bet you that would absolutely change the trajectory of your marriage. If you're married, this is one for marriage for sure, but give him a neck or shoulder massage after a hard day of work and tell him you're so proud of him. It's just like a way of honoring him. When he's about ready to make a decision you disagree with, unless it would cause significant harm, stop yourself from criticizing him or rolling your eyes or giving that exasperated sigh, and instead calmly ask him if he would like your input. I've done this many times because sometimes my husband makes decisions that I don't agree with, like a financial decision or something. I mean, he keeps on talking about we should have just leased a car. Like, I've done my research on that, and that's not a good idea. And so I feel like I need to point that out right away. Like, I should just clarify that is not a good idea. But that's disrespectful. So instead, I say, would you like my input on that? Most husbands are going to go, well, when you put it that way, I guess yes. And so then I'm like, well, I've done a little research, and this is what I found out, but it's your decision. And usually, most husbands will then listen to that opinion and incorporate it. This leads to the next suggestion. Ask his opinion on things, listen to his opinion, and incorporate some of his ideas. That is super respectful for a guy, that you care enough to ask for his opinion and maybe incorporate his opinion. Put notes in his lunch or send him an email at work telling him how much you appreciate all he does for his family. Here's a huge one. If he messes up on a decision or falls into some kind of sin, avoid rolling your eyes in disgust, giving that exasperated look, acting like you've never messed up before. Instead, tell him you're disappointed in what he chose to do, but you believe in him that sinful behavior is not who he is, and you want to work with him to overcome and find victory in that area, right? Because it's really easy to rub their noses in it, right? When they make a wrong decision, to go, well, yeah, should have done it my way. But what if you were just to speak words of encouragement in that moment? Here's a huge one. Brag about your husband within earshot. Brag about him to others when he's in earshot. That is so honoring. When you talk nicely about him in front of others. Ask him to take a spiritual gift assessment and then encourage him to spend time using that spiritual gift so that he finds fulfillment and joy as he discovers his purpose. Pay attention when he's trying to tell you something. Stop what you're doing. Actually engage with him. I'm going to tell myself again. So I'm always, on my phone doing important things. And sometimes they're important, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're really, like texting back and forth with an SOS woman in crisis. And my husband will often come and stand right in front of me, but I don't even look up because I'm like really busy doing this right now. And he gets exasperated, walks away, and I'm like, what is his problem? It's because I'm not even showing any respect by even looking up and going, is this urgent? Can I help you? I'm more focused on what I'm doing. Not so respectful, but what if we were to actually pay attention when he's talking with us? And be willing to let the small annoyances slide and stop complaining and being negative about everything. This is also something I've learned. When a man feels his wife is generally unhappy, he takes that as a failure on his part. Even though we wouldn't say that, he feels like a failure. He feels knocked down once again. He feels disrespected. Again, showing respect, super important to a man. Women wired to need gentle love. Men deeply crave respect. Back to that Shanti Feldhahn survey. I want to kind of finish up real quickly with this. She actually dug deep as she was interviewing husbands, and this survey revealed 6 keys to what makes a husband feel respected. And some of these things might also apply to your son, your brother, your uncle, your dad. 6 keys to what makes a man feel respected. Respect his judgment, as in avoiding constantly questioning his knowledge, opinions, and decisions. I'm bad at this. I'll just say, I'm bad at this. I'm always like, is that the right way to do that? You know, even though I don't even know what I'm talking about. I feel like I have to say that for some reason. Like, he could be changing a tire, which I've never done in my life, and I'd be like, is that the right way? I don't know. Secondly, respect his abilities, as in allowing him to handle projects without you acting like you know more about how to do it than he does. Back to the tire thing, right? Respect his abilities. Respect what he accomplishes. That means noticing and voicing appreciation for the things he does at work, at home, with the kids, like noticing that. Respectfully communicate with him, as in talking lovingly, gently, appreciatively with him. Respect him in public, as in never discussing his faults or failures in front of anyone else unless it's a counselor, and never jabbing him with sarcasm or humiliating teasing in public either. And then lastly, he wants respect in your assumptions, as in refusing to always assume the worst about him, such as assuming he doesn't really care, or he's going to forget to do that. And we women are bad in this area. I'm just going to say it. We tend to assume the most unflattering things about our husbands. Like, well, that's because he doesn't love me. That's because of this. That's because of that. We jump to unflattering conclusions. But what if we were to respect him in our assumptions and always assume the best? So he's, coming home late from work. Instead of assuming that he dropped off at a bar first, you assume that he got, called away at another project at work or had to go help a friend. You assume the best instead of always assuming the worst. So to help us avoid tearing our husbands down and to become intentional in building them up, now you may reach under your trays, because this little thing, I know you were hoping for a really big gift when I said there was going to be a gift tonight, but this is a relational gift to you. This is the sheet, 30 phrases you should say to your husband, 30 things you should never say to your husband. It used to be a list of 25, but now it's up to 30. Now we're up to 30. Oh, I think we need another one over here. Do we need another one over here?
That one right there.
Okay, there you go. All right. So, let's just run through a couple of these things. I won't read them all. But, and for those of you who are listening on the video, you can go to the Squadron of Sisters website, squadronofsisters.com, and click on the free resources tab, and you can find this list for yourself. But 30 phrases you should never say. I'm on the right-hand side now. 30 things you should never say. How many times do I have to tell you? Or here's the one that trips me up the most, honestly. Sweeping condemnations like, you always, you never. That one trips me up, honestly, the most. I find myself saying, you never, you always. And doesn't that just sound kind of ugly? Because it's basically saying, you are a complete failure all the time. You never do anything right, you always do everything wrong. So this would be a huge one to avoid, those sweeping condemnations. Some other suggestions of things you should never say. I can handle it myself. That's not the right way to do it. Why don't you ever? I don't need you. We never have enough money. And I could go on and on. I won't read the whole list. Things you should say. I am so proud of you. I need you. I so appreciate all you do. You're a good man. I know you can do it. And the list goes on and on. The reason I say this is a great relational tool, there are some women who I gave this list to like 8-10 years ago. They folded it up, they put it in their Bible, they keep on taking it out, rereading it, going like, oh, I just said some of these things you're not supposed to say today. And then it's like a reminder, okay, don't say those things, do say these things. And it could again change the trajectory of your relationship. So there you have it.